how clever is Tadej Pogacar? At the press conference before the Giro di Lombardia, the final monument of the season, the Slovenian was asked by the French media about those suspicions of doping that seemed to follow him around. His answer was simple, copying exactly the argument of the Danish anchovy Jonas Vingegaard, that Poggy should not be burdened with the historical baggage of the doping of times past, even though he shared a team with dirty dopers like Christian Durasek, and many of his compatriots were involved in Operation Adalas. No, he said that it was only envious people who criticized him, and that he would not risk his life by doping, that he's not that stupid. Well, Poggy, we have to tell you that low-cost Lance himself said something similar. He insisted that never in his sporting career would he take risks by doping. And we could also tell you that there are cyclists in this generation, your generation, dear Tadej, who are putting their lives at risk using substances designed to relax horses, such as SGF 1000 that we told you about in this video that you can see on the screen. Now, what was very clear is that nobody was willing to bet against the world champion winning his 4th consecutive Lombardy, a victory which would make him the first man in history to do so, and placing him only one win behind the record holder of this event, the legendary lover of wine and women, Fausto Coppi. The specialist media, such as the newspaper L'Equipe, clearly placed Urska Zigart's boyfriend as the favourite for the last great classic of the season. And then we heard from the insider Mo, exposing once again the improvements of the alien Poggy in training during this final part of the season, and insisting that the world champion is in better shape now than during his epic Tour de France, despite having more than 10,000 kilometres in his legs. How can it be explained? Mo tells us that Poggy really is an alien, a man not of this planet, capable of doing a consecutive series of efforts without suffering like the others. In line with what the Mito doctor Michele Ferrari told us in 2005 after the first withdrawal and retirement of low-cost Lance. That was when he said that there was still a very long way to go to find the perfect cyclist. Now, how could anyone hope to win in Lombardy against such a monster from outer space? A man whom the press has already compared to fictional characters enhanced by science, like the Hulk. There was a little chatter about distant attacks by cyclists with a certain name who try to surprise the alien. There were even loudmouths, like the man suspected of doping by his own team, Lennart van Eetvelt. He claimed to be able to beat the alien. What can we expect from a man who celebrated a stage victory that the skier Roglic took away from him simply by pedalling to the actual finish line? No, it looks to be impossible. In fact, in the usual round of pre-Lombardy interviews, journalists preferred to ask the Slovenian mystic about the other news of the day: Tiny Tim Pidcock's monumental swipe on his social networks against Team Sky, claiming that John Allert and his troupe had deselected the British rider from the Lombardy lineup, despite his great results in the Giro dell'Emilia and the Gran Piemonte, a race won by an unchained Nelson Paulus, who's finally won more competitions without his beloved Andrea Piccolo than with him. Now here, at the Cycling Highlights Mansion, we believe that Pidcock is lying. Well, either that, or the Sky management are complete idiots, as they're the one giving themselves a bad image, spreading around an impression of a lack of solidarity or bad management. No, we think Pidcock is lying because, as the journalist Daniel Frieber reported a few days ago, he is about to be officially signed by the Quebecer team, where his manager, Andy McQuaid, still has a hand, and where he can continue making his classic visits to Girona to prepare for his self-centered goals, and where they will let him continue to be the irregular multi-tool monster that he wants to be. Make sure you follow us on our personal Twitter, @UncleCycling. That way you'll keep up with all this and, well, all other cycling news. And you can subscribe to this humble channel for more content. And now, yes, let's move on to analyse Il Lombardia 2024. This year's 255 kilometres between Bergamo and Como had to be modified due to landslides and mudslides near Bergamo, replacing the Passo Ganda with the Selvino. But it wouldn't change the scenery too much. The start with those cloudy skies, well, they didn't have all the participants registered for the race because of damnable illnesses that the teams, well, they won't go into details about. But it included one of the favourites for the podium, Romain Bardet, in his final Lombardia. The man who finished second in Liège was suffering from one of these sudden illnesses that seemed to have hit the peloton in October, just as happened to the Slovenian Jan Tratnik, who helped Poggi just a fortnight ago at the World Championships, but now he's feeling ill, unable to compete in his last race with Team Rabobank. There was also Garmin's South African, Stefan de Boot, who suffered an untimely fever 2 days after the victory of his teammate Paulus. Anyway, as usual, we wish a speedy recovery for these three riders, for they have missed out on the first attacks at more than 46 kilometers per hour average during the first hour of the race. There was a breakaway where we saw dangerous men such as the Bahrain duo of Mr. Dropper Seatpost and Antonio Tiberi. There was Orica's Irishman Eddie Dunbar, or the Colombian duo of Daddy Martinez of Bora and Aino Rubio of Team Banesto. Still, the feeling is that the faster the pace, well, much the better for Poggi, so really this tactic didn't make much sense. This breakaway group had as many as 21 members, and for a time they worked quite well, but it was still not enough to achieve a big lead. They had close to 5 minutes at their peak, but then we saw it descending as they climbed passes like the Madonna di Ghisallo, where the Saunier Duval team went to work with a spectacular Jan Christen and even a surprisingly hard-working Mark Hirschi. There was a team feeling and unity that we've rarely seen in Dracula Gianetti's stable. Now, we don't know if they're now following Mo's advice or if they're really convinced that they have an alien in their ranks after seeing the training performed by bib number 1 on the Colma di Sommarno with Pavel Sivakov in the days leading up to Il Lombardia. Training in which the former champion of the last monument of the season, Bauke Mollema, insisted was several minutes faster than him on this classic pass in the province of Como. Now, by the time they reached this pass, the escapees were only a minute apart, and they were scattered as Adam Yates and Pavel Sivakov prepared the final attack of the Slovenian alien, dressed today, as you can see, in horrible white bib shorts. But that's the way it goes, dear friends. With 48.5 kilometers to go, Poggi's expected attack came, and in just 1 kilometer, he was 40 seconds ahead of a group of 3 formed by Focusing Evenepoel, the attacker Enric Mas, and the man suspected of doping by his own team, Van Eetvelt. It was not the attack with 115 kilometers to go of the doper Tony Rominger in 1989, but it was the 7th exhibition of his season with really long-distance attacks, 4 of them in his last 4 competitions, if we of course exclude the Trevali Varesina that was cancelled. Poggi makes history again, and then he keeps saying that he's suffering because of the dopers of the past, when none of them did what he's doing day after day in professional cycling today. Again, mutant records. Again, historical exhibitions without anyone being able to do anything at all. Focusing went for second place and began to pull ahead of his pursuers, among them the same Sivakov who'd worked for Poggi earlier. But the gap that the alien was taking over the Belgian was getting bigger and bigger, exceeding 2 minutes with 15 kilometers to go. Poggi crossed the finish line and lifted his bike, proving that he had had the best season in the history of cycling, with 2 monuments, 2 Grand Tours, and becoming World Road Race Champion. He'd pulled out a gap of 3 minutes and 16 seconds over Focusing, the biggest gap to second place since 1971, when the doped dinosaur Eddy Merckx pulled out 3 minutes and 31 seconds on Bitossi. You're right, Poggi, I don't know why people are talking about the dopers of the 90s. You don't deserve that. You're on a completely different level. Now, dear viewers, look at the video on the screen there. You are sure to love it.